I'm Alexandra White, the moderator for today's session, and I am joined by Melis Chenair, the AVP of Paid Media for DAC, and Sabrina Siegel, the Director of Advanced Advertising and National Sales at Bell Media. Melis, the shift from traditional TV to streaming is well underway. What are the opportunities and challenges that this presents for brands?
I think the biggest opportunity is for brands to leverage each of the strengths of these channels and come up with combination strategies for maximum impact. The challenge is that a lot of the time advertisers think of streaming as just digital TV, and that can be disadvantageous for them simply because in terms of targeting capabilities, measurement, creative, these two channels actually need to be evaluated and executed completely differently.
Sabrina, how has the rise of streaming changed consumer behavior, and what does that mean for advertisers looking to engage audiences more effectively?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, what we're really seeing now is the power really is with the user more than ever. There's a lot of choice out there. Whether you're consuming content in a linear fashion or whether you're consuming content from a streaming perspective, there's a lot more choice for the user. And what that means for the advertiser is making sure the message that's being developed is very specific to how they're consuming content. And the advertiser can leverage things like data more than ever from a streaming perspective to ensure the message is speaking to that audience. The advertiser needs to really focus on cross-platform strategies, as you mentioned, in addition to overall measurement, which is very, very difficult because there's so much more choice, more than ever, and it's created a very fragmented environment.
Melis, what are some of the key considerations for brands when developing multi-platform campaigns that integrate streaming with social media and other digital platforms?
So Alexandra, I think that sometimes for brands, finding a balance between consistency and customization can be quite difficult. We want to make sure that each creative is adapted to the spirit of the platform that it's airing on, but we also want to make sure, obviously, that it has that consistent look and feel, the consistent brand look, and it has consistent brand messaging. And DAC's creative team can actually help with this. We have a proprietary framework called Brand Lens, and this methodology essentially takes your brand personality, it takes your audience data, and it merges it all together to come up with purposeful execution to air on different platforms.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sabrina, with increasing options for streaming platforms, how should brands differentiate their messaging across those platforms?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually going to refer a little bit to Melissa's answer because honestly, there's so much choice out there. You have to build strategies very specific to each platform. And then when you layer in all the different streaming services and define what connected TV actually means, you have to have a very different strategy from what you do on YouTube and what you do on Crave, for example. And really respect the user experience in both. Understand the data that you can leverage to really tailor your message depending on which platform you're using. Understand the measurement as well to ensure and learn from that measurement to impact your next strategy for your next campaign. So a holistic view across all of these different options is very difficult, but very important when executing a campaign on all the streaming platforms that exist today.
Absolutely.
Melis, how does programmatic advertising in streaming differ from traditional TV ad buying, and what advantages does it offer?
Great question. Real-time reporting and direct access to targeted audiences are probably the two most prominent differences between those two channels. That being said, we usually advise advertisers to make sure they have good coverage in terms of both of these channels. So it's usually a combination buying strategy. And we have to keep in mind that a lot of the time, as you layer on targeting, streaming can come at a higher cost. So what we like to do usually is to use traditional TV as broad umbrella coverage and then do targeted touch points with streaming.
Sabrina, one of the major advantages of streaming is the data that it offers. How can brands use this to improve the relevance of ads and engagement?
Absolutely. Data does improve the relevance of engagement, and it's really important that it is leveraged properly. We're really fortunate at Bell Media to have Bell as a parent company. That allows us to have access to very deterministic, behavioral-driven segments in a very privacy-compliant fashion. And really being able to take advantage of the 70 pre-built that we have created for advertisers, or the opportunity to create something very specific for a campaign drives success. And what we have seen is that when leveraging this type of data, we're looking at a 10 to 50% online lift, which is outstanding. And those are the types of results that you want to see, when you're planning and executing campaigns both digitally and on streaming devices.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Melis, what are the best metrics for measuring success in streaming ad campaigns and traditional TV?
In traditional TV, typically we focused on impressions and GRPs, though we do always recommend backing up your brand impact with brand sentiment analyses, brand awareness analyses. So that is something that our strategic insights team can actually arrange when we're running one of these campaigns. For streaming, we were talking a little bit about the measurement being completely different, the KPIs requiring a different evaluation. So for streaming, we're looking at things like views, completed views, and we can even do things like QR code scans, for example. But I still think the value of the brand sentiment analysis, or even running an MMM to make sure that you have the right investment distribution is key, and our Prove Analytics team can help with that as well.
Sabrina, looking ahead, what emerging trends should brands and agencies watch for as streaming continues to dominate Canada's media landscape?
Absolutely. My crystal ball is going to say the following. Honestly, we're seeing a huge rise in things like fast channels. We're a little bit behind the US, but I think Canada is going to be a fast follow. We're going to see continued fragmentation. I think it's going to be rather disruptive, and we have to work together to ensure that we're providing the best solutions for clients. I think you're going to see continued distribution of content across different platforms. For example, we will continue to develop content that might be specific for our YouTube strategy or for our TikTok or social media strategy. So you'll continue to see content as very, very central in our strategies, but making sure that we are distributing it to all Canadians. You'll see continued focus on localized content, especially right now. And I think what's really, really important, we've talked about it at length, I think, already today, but is to ensure that your brand message is being developed specifically for those platforms. I think that it's important to recognize that not all impressions are created equal.
Absolutely.
Yes, some might be a little bit more expensive than others, but there's reasons for that. And I think that it's really important to build campaigns that are localized to Canada. I think that you're going to see a real focus with that particular strategy over the next little while.
Great. Thank you both for your insights today. I think we all learned a lot about advertising in the Canadian media landscape right now. It was great to have this conversation.
Agreed. Thank you so much both for your time. And if you're interested in learning about how DAC can help with your media strategies, please feel free to get in touch.